New information about a man who was getting his hair cut at a salon when he was shot and killed. Arlington police are calling it a murder-suicide. And Scoop Jefferson just spoke with people who witnessed the shooting on Cooper Street.
This is the moment Arlington police officers arrived at the front doors of the Spa Galleria strip mall on shots fired, recorded on a cell phone.
Breaking today from Arlington, Texas. A routine haircut turned into a fatal confrontation when a woman walked into a busy salon and opened fire on her ex-boyfriend. Both are now dead. Their child has lost both parents in a single morning. And the story behind what led to this moment is far more complicated than anyone initially realized. Court documents have surfaced. Witnesses are speaking out. And what looked like a simple case of jealousy has become a tangled web of financial allegations, restraining orders, and competing narratives about who was really the victim here. On the morning of July 11, 2025, William Todd Austin walked into Salon and Spa Galleria on South Cooper Street in Arlington, Texas. He was 37 years old, a businessman who'd built a name for himself in the credit repair industry. His company, Credit Champs, had a growing social media following. People knew him as the credit guru who helped everyday people fix their financial lives and build business credit. That. Friday morning, he had an appointment with his barber, a man who'd been cutting his hair for 12 years. It was supposed to be just another regular haircut, but his ex-girlfriend, Timone Michelle Williams, knew exactly where he'd be. She walked into that salon around 10:15 in the morning, headed straight to the back where the Barbershop suites were located, and within minutes, shots rang out. People started screaming. Stylists ran from their suites. Someone called 911. When Arlington police officers arrived at the front doors, they found Michelle trying to leave the building. But when she saw the officers outside, she turned back, went inside, and moments later, took her own life. Todd was found with fatal gunshot wounds and was pronounced gone at the scene. Michelle was rushed to the hospital but didn't survive. 2 people dead, a barber traumatized, witnesses in shock, and a child left without both parents. The immediate reaction was predictable. People assumed this was a crime of passion, a jealous ex who couldn't handle the breakup. Todd's followers flooded social media with tributes, talking about how he'd helped them rebuild their credit and change their financial situations. They posted screenshots of his motivational content, photos of his customized Cybertruck wrapped with his company logo, videos of him teaching people about business credit and financial freedom. But then, something shifted. Court documents started surfacing. Ring camera footage appeared online. Text messages were leaked. And suddenly, the narrative wasn't so simple anymore. This wasn't just about a breakup. There were allegations of financial manipulation, restraining orders, and a business partnership that had turned toxic. William Todd Austin wasn't always the successful entrepreneur people saw online. He was originally from Bossier City, Louisiana, graduated from Westport High School in Missouri back in 2006, and eventually made his way to Texas. Friends say he started out selling wigs and hair products. In August 2016, he began working with Entrepreneur Blueprint and founded something called the Vendor Mansion. But his main focus became Credit Champs, a credit repair company that promised to help people fix their personal credit and build business credit to access funding. On social media, he projected success: designer clothes, trips to Miami, a Tesla Cybertruck with his business logo plastered across it. He posted client testimonials regularly, showing people who said he'd changed their financial lives. One client said in a video, "This is a great company to invest in because they are really good and they're legit. I know a lot of people that are out here scamming people, and I was so fortunate for me to be able to come to them and then be my first experience, and it was a great experience. I got access to the funding that I needed in just a few months. I know everyone's situation is different, so I just want to be realistic. Everyone's situation will be different, but for my situation, I got it pretty quickly." Todd also worked as a private chef on the side, frequently posting cooking videos with one of his sons. He'd just celebrated his 37th birthday on May 15, 2025. By all appearances, he was living the life he preached about: financial freedom, entrepreneurship, helping others. Timon Michelle Williams was also 37 years old and also from Bossier City, Louisiana. She was a U.S. Army veteran. After her service, she'd built herself up in the credit repair industry too. She founded Lux Credit Services and positioned herself as a CEO, financial strategist, credit analyst, tax preparer, and mentor. When she and Todd got together, it looked like a power couple situation. Two people in the same industry, both building their brands, both ambitious. They dated for a few years, and on December 25, 2022, Michelle gave birth to their son, who she called her Christmas baby. She was now a mother to 2 children. From the outside, everything seemed fine. Business posts, family celebrations, the image of a thriving couple building something together. But at some point, the relationship fell apart. They separated, not just romantically, but in business too. And that's when things allegedly got messy. If you're finding value in this case, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. These cases are more than just news stories. They're warnings about patterns we all need to recognize before tragedy strikes. Share this with someone who needs to understand how quickly domestic conflict can escalate, because awareness might be what saves a life down the road. On March 6, 2025, just 4 months before the fatal shooting, Michelle filed for a protective order in Denton County, Texas. In the court documents, there was a section about history of patterns. It stated that William Todd Austin Jr. had a documented pattern of specific behaviors during the 2 years before the filing. 11 days after Michelle filed that protective order, Todd was arrested and booked in Collin County, Texas. The bond was set at $5,000. So months before anyone walked into that salon with a firearm, there was already legal documentation of conflict between these two. Michelle wasn't just asking for protection, she was also asking to be appointed sole managing conservator of their son. She didn't want joint custody. The petition included references to the protective order that had been issued, and here's where it gets even more complicated. Michelle was seeking monetary relief over $250,000, but not more than $1 million. That's not a small amount. That's the kind of number that suggests serious financial disputes, not just a bad breakup. Then Ring camera footage surfaced online. The video shows someone at Michelle's door, someone who wasn't supposed to be there according to the restraining order, trying to get in and getting increasingly aggressive when he couldn't.
Motherfucker wanna fucking pop me. I'm gonna shit. You gonna take the pole? You gonna take the pole on the door? You stay.
Alleged text messages between Michelle and someone she knew also started circulating. In these messages, Michelle had sent screenshots of the Ring camera footage along with photos showing damage to her property. The messages showed Michelle venting about Todd's behavior from the very beginning of their relationship. According to these texts, he'd been living downtown on something called a CPN, which is a credit privacy number, when they first met. He was allegedly behind on rent and bills. She talked about teaching him the credit business, getting him to make more money than he'd ever made before, only for him to allegedly take everything. In other messages, she emphasized that he knew nothing about credit until she taught him. His specialty became business credit, but before that, he was just selling hair and vendor lists. There were screenshots where Todd allegedly admitted he wasn't in a good place financially. Another showed him requesting that Michelle record a testimonial for his business, claiming he'd helped fix her credit when, according to her, that wasn't true. Michelle talked about being his only baby mama from Texas, and wrote about wanting to confront him if only she could get past the gate security where he was staying. The messages painted a picture of someone who'd been dealing with unwanted visits, property damage, and a relationship that had completely broken down. But here's where this case gets even more layered. A woman named Nikki Hunter posted a video online defending Michelle after the shooting. Nikki claimed to be Michelle's friend and said she wanted to clear up false narratives that were spreading about what happened. In her video, Nikki made serious allegations. She said Michelle came from nothing and built herself up as a veteran and successful business owner. When Michelle met Todd, according to Nikki, Todd was living downtown Dallas under a CPN number. Nikki claimed he did not know how to do credit repair, and that Michelle taught him everything, and together they built Credit Champs. Nikki went on to allege that after they broke up, Todd removed Michelle's name from their shared business bank account, changed the associated email, and withdrew all the funds, approximately $96,000, leaving Michelle without access to money she needed for living expenses. She said Michelle had not been working because she was caring for their baby and was relying on those savings. Nikki also claimed Todd found a way to withdraw funds from Michelle's personal account and even filed fraudulent disputes on 18 months' worth of mortgage payments that Michelle had paid from their business account. This allegedly resulted in a foreclosure notice in July demanding $55,000 or requiring Michelle to vacate the property within 60 days. Nikki stated that Michelle went to Vegas one weekend, and when she came back, all her money was gone. She described Michelle as having $250,000 or even $500,000 in her bank account that suddenly became zero. According to Nikki, Michelle couldn't pay her mortgage, couldn't take care of her kids, and Todd was allegedly threatening her while not giving her anything for their child. Nikki claimed Michelle had several cases against Todd, and that Nikki herself had just won a lawsuit against him and got paid off a day before the murder. She said Michelle was suing Todd for a lot of money and that he was taunting her by still promoting the company, still making money off the business they allegedly built together, not giving her access to any of the money. Nikki alleged Todd was riding past Michelle's house in his wrapped Cybertruck, which Michelle could see on her Ring camera, essentially taunting her.
Gonna put in my path. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I can tell you one thing. Nothing but good shit gonna happen for me. Abundance. I don't know who God gonna put in my path. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I can tell you one thing. Nothing but good shit gonna happen for me. Abundance.
She described Michelle as full of debt, about to lose her home, with $0 to deal with her situation. Nikki said Michelle reached out to family and friends for help, and only a handful of people helped her. Nikki also claimed Todd took Michelle's $10,000 settlement payment that she got from the military when he got access to her phone. At the end of her video, Nikki said, "I'm not justifying anything that she done, but I understand."
The story of Michelle and Todd to clear the false narratives. He did not give her HIV. He was not cheating on her at the time of the murder-suicide. In fact, they haven't even been together in over a year. Yeah, Michelle came from nothing. She built herself up as a veteran, as a successful business owner. Her knowledge, the things that she knew in order to get money to take care of her kids as a single mother. When she met Todd, Todd was living downtown Dallas under a CPN number. He did not know how to do credit repair. She taught him how to do that, and they built this business, Credit Champs, together. Whenever they broke up, because I see he's been sending his clients the video when she pulled the gun on him. She wanted him out of her house and he would not leave. There's an active restraining order right now against him. Terroristic threat against her and her son. He threatened to kill them both. Okay? Todd reversed all of Michelle's mortgage payments up to I think 18 months, probably more, to the point where she was about to lose her home. How he did this is because they have a joint bank account. He removed her off of the bank. I don't even know how he could have even did this, but he removed her name off the bank because she had no access.
That video spread fast. People started reshaping their understanding of what happened. Maybe this wasn't just about jealousy. Maybe Michelle was financially destroyed and desperate. But then, just when it seemed like Nikki had set the record straight, someone came forward with information about Nikki herself. Someone close to Todd posted online calling out Nikki's credibility. This person claimed Nikki wasn't actually Michelle's close friend at all, but was Todd's former client and mentee who had paid Todd for credit repair services. In a video response, this person asked, "How did you forget out of this heartfelt story that you told the internet? How did you forget to tell the people that you were involved with him romantically? How did you forget to tell the people that you paid him for a mentorship? How did you forget to tell the people that you never met his girlfriend until after you had a falling out with him? How did you forget to mention that those pictures in those Lamborghinis on your page, That was his car that you was posting pictures in. The person went on to claim that Nikki was trying to sue Todd because he didn't want to give her $3,200 cash and was going to pay it off gradually on her credit card instead. They questioned where these allegations were coming from and when Nikki started defending Michelle, suggesting Nikki went to find Michelle after she fell out with Todd. The person said, "Do I need to post the receipts? Because this stuff right here is kind of getting out of control, and the internet is running with it." They pointed out that Nikki ran her own credit repair company too, Rich Reports, same industry as Todd and Michelle. On February 6, 2025, Nikki made a post stating that she was suing Todd Austin and that he was texting her with threats, saying he was going to send her to jail because she was a scammer. So was Nikki really defending her friend Michelle? Or was she using the tragedy to settle her own score with Todd? Another person pointed out inconsistencies in Nikki's story, claiming that the situation wasn't as one-sided as Nikki presented. This person stated that both Todd and Michelle had been aggressive toward each other and had their own personal issues. They alleged that Michelle changed the email to the bank accounts first, locking Todd out and leaving him with just a backpack and the clothes on his back because she wouldn't let him get his things. They claimed she had his cars towed and threatened to tell police he harmed her if he tried to get them. This person also said it was impossible for a 37-year-old to take out a reverse mortgage like Nikki claimed, pointing out factual errors in Nikki's allegations. They suggested Nikki had been romantically involved with Todd herself and had her own history with him, implying she wasn't actually Michelle's real friend but someone settling her own score and making things up to get followers for her own credit repair business. More anonymous posts circulated with additional allegations about Todd. One claimed he had 9 children and was $200,000 behind in child support collectively across all his cases. The post alleged he evaded child support by hiding money and locations under LLCs and not filing taxes on his businesses. Another post alleged that Todd's credit repair business involved selling client information and stated they were suing Todd and had a court date, though none of these claims have been verified by law enforcement or credible sources. Days after the incident, a woman named lled, who alleged that she was once in a relationship with Todd, wrote a detailed post about what she claims to know about the situation. She wrote, "Greed is real, the real story. I've talked to close friends and family. At the time they met, she was a single, very stable mother with everything. Good job, retirement check. Homeowner, with a few cars. Todd did not have the resources or success people often believe. In fact, he had a history of deceptive behavior and was not financially stable. Their relationship moved quickly, but they were never married and were only together for a few years. They had a mutual agreement that Todd would move out of her home so that they could amicably separate their shared business. Although he initially moved out, he became increasingly hostile and began returning to her residence uninvited. This led her to obtain a restraining order against him in March. After moving out, Todd removed her name from their shared business bank account, changed the associated email, and withdrew all funds, approximately $96,000, leaving her without access to money she needed for living expenses. She had not been working due to caring for their baby and was relying on those savings. He also found a way to withdraw funds from her personal account. Further compounding the situation, Todd filed fraudulent disputes on 18 months' worth of mortgage payments that she had paid from their business account. This resulted in a foreclosure notice in July demanding $55,000 or requiring her to vacate the property within 60 days. Since he had removed her name from the business account, it was difficult for her to contest the fraud claims. Meanwhile, Todd used the misappropriated funds to purchase a Cybertruck. Legal proceedings followed, focusing on the division of their jointly built business, Credit Champs. Last week, the court ruled in Todd's favor, granting him full ownership of the business and all 3 vehicles purchased under its name. Despite her significant role in starting and growing the company, she was left with nothing. No business, no income, and only a few cents in her personal account. She had attempted to reach a compromise, asking Todd for $20,000 to help her and the baby stabilize, but he refused and responded cruelly. She was not driven by jealousy. She was desperate, soon to be homeless, and had been completely stripped of everything she helped build. Lled then shared her own personal story. She said, "I was in a relationship with William Todd Austin for nearly 2 years, during which we dated while he was between the ages of 24 and 26. It was a wild and emotionally draining experience. After about 22 months of dating, I made the mistake of allowing him to move in with me. That's when everything took a darker turn. At the time, I was and still am a business owner, and I exposed him to a different level of lifestyle and business insight. I introduced him to entrepreneurship from selling hair to clothing, and he learned a lot from me. Unfortunately, rather than showing appreciation or giving credit, he took what he learned and passed it off as his own, never once acknowledging where it came from. It became clear over time that he was trying to mimic everything I did. Every business idea I had, he tried to copy. He presented himself as a nice guy, but the reality was different. Behind closed doors, there was a pattern of manipulation, jealousy, and dishonesty. Despite his charming behavior in public, he had narcissistic tendencies and constantly blamed me for everything. Child support letters started arriving, multiple each month, addressed to him with different names. When I questioned him, he claimed he only had 3 children and that others were falsely attributing kids to him. His explanations never added up, and when I asked why he didn't communicate with his kids, he blamed toxic relationships with their mothers. So, who was telling the truth? Was Michelle a desperate woman who'd been financially destroyed by a manipulative ex? Or were both of them aggressive toward each other with their own issues? Was Nikki a loyal friend defending Michelle's memory? Or was she a scorned business associate settling her own grudge against Todd? These are the questions people online couldn't stop debating in the days and weeks after the shooting. But while the internet argued about who was the villain and who was the victim, there was someone else suffering in silence. The barber who witnessed it all. Dax, known professionally as Dax the Barber, had been cutting Todd's hair for 12 years. He described his clients as extended family. That Friday morning started like any other appointment. Todd walked in, sat down in the chair. They started their usual conversation. Then Michelle walked in, and within moments, everything changed. Dax was standing right there when the shots were fired. He saw Todd suffer fatal injuries. He saw Michelle turn the weapon on herself. When police arrived and secured the scene, Dax was visibly shaken. His wife came to comfort him. Other salon workers stood outside trying to process what they'd just witnessed. In an interview days later, Dax talked about the trauma. He said, "At any moment I could be like, I'm good because those are my 2 favorite words to say. I'm good. But sometimes I'm not." He couldn't close his eyes without seeing what happened. When he went back to his suite days later to see what he could salvage, he thought everything had been cleaned up. But he'd pick up something and see blood on it and get freaked out. He said, "I don't want none of it now. I don't know. I don't want to one day be over here trying to get over this whole thing and then pick up something I brought from the other place and there's blood on it." He couldn't work in that space anymore.
I've created peace.
Barber life will never be the same.
Because I'm gonna see something I never thought I would see. At any moment I could be like, I'm good. Because those are my 2 favorite words to say. I'm good. But sometimes I'm not.
Some of his clients were too scared to come back to the salon after what happened. The community started a GoFundMe to help him move to a different location and get back on his feet. What touched him most was that strangers, people who'd never gotten a haircut from him, people who didn't even know him, donated money to help. He said, "I can't describe that because, like I said, I'm not used to being the person somebody does something for, especially people who don't know me. In the world we live in today where everybody's pitted against each other in some kind of way, you get people who genuinely care about not basically me but the situation, because that could have been any barber in any chair. It just happened to be me." The salon was closed for the rest of that day. Staff and other stylists were deeply shaken. Some who were inside the building when it happened later said they were traumatized by the sound of gunfire and the realization of what they had witnessed. One witness, too shaken to go on camera, told reporters that the victim was a regular at the barbershop. He came several times a week. The witness said the shooter fired a burst of shots, then began telling everyone to get out and tried to get into several stalls. He locked himself in with a customer and said to himself, "Lord, just let me get out of here." Police classified the incident as a targeted murder that ended with Michelle taking her own life. There was no ongoing threat and no one else was involved. The firearm was recovered at the scene. According to investigators, there were no signs of a struggle. This was not a robbery. There was no fight with a third person. It was a direct, personal confrontation. Detectives confirmed that Todd and Michelle had been previously in a relationship and that they shared a child. Their split had happened earlier, but it's not clear whether they were on good terms or if there had been previous threats or warning signs beyond the restraining order. Police haven't released much about their history beyond what's in the court filings. So what really led Michelle to walk into that salon that morning? According to reports and documents that surfaced, they were separated, and Michelle was seeking over $250,000 in monetary relief and sole custody of their son. By July, according to allegations from people who claimed to know her, Michelle's situation had deteriorated completely. No access to the business account, no income, allegedly facing foreclosure. Meanwhile, Todd kept posting on social media, still promoting Credit Champs and showing the lifestyle. The day before the incident, he posted about credit being the reason people struggle. Then, on the morning of July 11th, he posted again about fixing credit being a top priority. Some people believed these posts, showing his success while Michelle allegedly struggled financially, may have contributed to her emotional state that day. But that's speculation. What we know for certain is that on July 11th, 2025, at approximately 10:15 in the morning, Michelle walked into Salon and Spa Galleria, went straight to the suite where Todd was getting his hair cut, and opened fire. Todd died at the scene. Michelle took her own life moments later. 2 lives ended. A child lost both parents in a single morning. Because both Todd and Michelle died at the scene, there was no arrest, no trial, and no sentencing. That left a lot of people feeling like there would never be full answers. Was there an ongoing custody battle? Had there been threats before the restraining order? Was mental health a factor? Was this planned or did a confrontation spiral out of control? Police didn't release much in the days following the shooting. They simply called it a matter related to their prior relationship and asked anyone with more information to come forward. Arlington police closed the case as a targeted incident by late July 2025, confirming no broader threat via surveillance and witness reviews. The Tarrant County Medical Examiner finalized both deaths as expected. No charges were filed since Michelle died by her own hand, leaving the investigation focused on prevention lessons rather than prosecution. The most heartbreaking part of this story is the child who lost both parents in one day, one to violence, the other to a choice made in desperation or rage or both. It's unclear who is now caring for the child, but people online have expressed hope that the families will rally to provide support. There's been public discussion about the mental health impact on that child growing up, knowing the story of what happened. Several fundraising efforts were mentioned in the days after the shooting, possibly to support funeral costs or provide long-term care for the child. Austin's death drew tributes for his Credit Champs mentorship, while Michelle's friends alleged financial grievances, fueling polarized online narratives. Their young child entered family custody with no public updates on welfare. Vigils honored both as victims of a troubled relationship. So what do we take away from this? On one hand, you have a man who by many accounts was a successful entrepreneur helping people fix their credit and build financial freedom. On the other hand, you have allegations from multiple women who say he had a pattern of manipulation, financial control, and taking credit for other people's work. You have a woman who was a military veteran, a mother, someone who allegedly helped build a business from the ground up, only to be locked out of it. But you also have conflicting stories about who locked who out first, who changed the passwords, who drained the accounts. You have a protective order filed in March. You have an arrest in March. You have ring camera footage of someone at a door who wasn't supposed to be there. You have text messages showing frustration and anger. You have a court ruling in Todd's favor just days before the shooting. And you have a woman who walked into a salon with a firearm, confronted her ex-boyfriend, and made a choice that ended 2 lives and orphaned a child. There are 3 sides to every story. The 2 sides of the people involved, and the side of the truth. But the only thing certain is what was left behind. 2 families grieving, a barber trying to rebuild his business and his peace of mind, salon workers who lost clients too afraid to return, a child growing up without either parent, and a community trying to understand how things got this far. Could this have been prevented? Were there warning signs that were ignored? Should someone have intervened when the protective order was filed? Should family or friends have stepped in when the financial disputes escalated? These are questions without easy answers. What we do know is that domestic conflict, especially when it involves money, custody, and business partnerships, can escalate faster than anyone expects. The restraining order wasn't enough. The court proceedings weren't enough. Whatever support system existed around these two people wasn't enough to stop what happened on July 11th. In the weeks after the incident, discussions surged online about prevention, about recognizing warning signs, about better mental health access in communities. The salon and spa galleria temporarily closed for investigation and trauma response. Nearby businesses on South Cooper Street implemented heightened security measures, additional cameras, staff, vigilance, amid community shock. The salon resumed limited operations within 2 weeks, by late July 2025, after counseling sessions for staff and deep cleaning. Management offered discounted services initially to rebuild client trust, focusing on appointment-only bookings to manage foot traffic. Adjacent shops, including the Barbershop impacted indirectly, relied on community fundraisers for lost revenue, reopening fully by August 2025 with reinforced doors and panic buttons. Long-term, the strip mall introduced joint safety protocols like shared alert systems, evolving into a model for crisis recovery discussed locally. If you've made it this far, you understand this case is about more than just headlines. It's about patterns, warning signs, and the devastating consequences when conflict is left unresolved. Which case do you think deserves extensive research next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. Your input shapes what we cover, and together we can shed light on the stories that need to be told. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. This story isn't over in the sense that its lessons continue. Their child will grow up with questions about what happened to his parents. Dax will carry the memory of that morning for the rest of his life. The families of both Todd and Michelle will forever wonder if there was something they could have done differently. The internet will continue to debate who was really at fault, who was the villain, who was the victim. But the truth is, both of them made choices that led to that moment. Both of them had opportunities to walk away, to seek help, to let the courts handle their disputes. And both of them are gone now, leaving behind a child who will never get to ask them why. That's the real tragedy here. Not the business, not the money, not who was right or wrong about credit champs. The real tragedy is a little boy who will grow up without his mother and without his father because two adults couldn't find a way to resolve their conflict without violence. So when you see restraining orders, when you see escalating arguments about money or custody, when you see social media posts that hint at deeper problems, pay attention, intervene, encourage people to get help. Because what happened in Arlington on July 11, 2025, didn't have to happen. It was preventable. And the next one might be too, if we're willing to recognize the signs and act before it's too late. This case serves as a stark reminder that behind every headline about domestic tragedy, there are real people, real families, and real children whose lives are forever changed. The questions remain. Could better intervention have stopped this? What systemic changes are needed to prevent similar tragedies? And most importantly, how do we protect the children caught in the middle of adult conflict? These are conversations worth having because Michelle and Todd's story, as tragic as it is not unique. It happens more often than we'd like to admit. And until we start treating these warning signs with the urgency they deserve, it will keep happening. Stay vigilant. Stay informed. And remember that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply notice when someone you know is in crisis and help them find a way out before it's too late.